matchwomen in Victorian London, in Victorian England. Come on down, the Bryant and May matchwomen. They were everything that you weren't supposed to be. They were working class. They were very poor. They were EastEnders. This was not good. EastEnder, the term, had just been invented in 1888. This is when they go on strike. And it's an insult. EastEnder is an insult. They said that if you have an EastEnder anywhere near you, reach for the bug powder and lock away the spoons. So, 2 strikes against him. Irish. And of Irish heritage. Well, I mean, talk about, you know, making things difficult for everybody. If Irish cockneys at this time, as Charles Booth wrote, Irish cockneys in this part of London are considered not human, they are like wild beasts. So there you go. So we have women who are everything that is not respectable. The lowest of the low, someone called them, a rough set of girls, someone else called them. They made matches for Bryant and May. In Bow, there were lots of Bryant and May factories, but Bow was an enormous one. There were several thousand people working, not just in the factory, but in all the streets and houses around the area, within a few mile radius, lots of people making matchboxes. You would tend to work in the factory. When you had a baby, you'd go home and make the boxes, and then you'd go back to the factory. They worked incredibly long hours in the factory. They would be more or less locked in, work for 12 hours or 14 hours. They were standing for the whole time. Wages were shockingly low, even for the period. They were as low now, it turned out, their strike revealed all this stuff about Bryant and May. The wages were lower than they had been 10 years previously, because Bryant and May were an amazingly modern company. Our government would have loved them. They did what they were supposed to do. They drove wages down, they formed cartels, they fought against workers, they tried to stop workers organising, all the stuff that a good capitalist does. But the matchmen, why were they labelled so bad when they worked these long hours for these incredibly low wages? They were strivers, after all. They were strivers, not shirkers. Surely the Victorians should have loved them. But no, just because of their class, just because of their gender. At this point, women's work becomes really visible because of industrialisation. Women have always worked. This is the great myth that women, in the old days, women didn't work and that was the way it was supposed to be and that was respectable. Absolutely untrue. Women have worked since records began. But the Victorians, they come up with so many bad ideas, did the Victorians, as well as trains and some good stuff, decided that respectable women didn't work. And it's the male factory owners who come from the working class, actually, but who make money. Suddenly you can make money. If you've got the capital for a factory, you can rise up the social scale in a way you couldn't do before. So they start saying, well, we're going to ignore the aristocratic idea that gentlemen don't work. Obviously, that's out. We're not going to have that. But we will do like the aristocratic idea that ladies of leisure, ladies who don't work, respectable ladies don't work. So if you can manage the sort of dichotomy of going into work, into your factory where you have mostly female labourers, because in the early days of industrialisation you did, 75% in the textile industries were women, and then going home and saying decent women don't work while taking the profits from your female labourers. But the Victorians were very good at holding 2 or 3 contradictory positions at any one time. The matchwomen came to attention during the Fabian meeting. The Fabians were a group set up, George Bernard Shaw was one of the key members of it. There was a woman called Annie Besant who was a Fabian as well. If you've heard about the matchwomen's strike, unless you've heard it from my book, you probably think that Annie Besant led the strike. I mean, you could totally be forgiven for thinking that. People think she was a matchwoman. I mean, she's so mentioned